Hello, my name is Ross Kearney. I teach high school at the new school in Kennebunk, Maine. It's an alternative high school where the kids are very self-directed and very self-interested. So we get to teach a lot of strengths to them. Last year, a couple of kids wanted a class in cryptozoology. And I was like, I've been interested in cryptozoology and stuff since I was a kid, so this will be awesome. I then expanded the class out to all Fortean studies, where we covered alien abduction. I had the guy from MUFON come up. He's the New England director from MUFON, come up and speak to the class, which was great. He got to show them kind of what they do in their research and how they document everything. I also had students that were interested in the paranormal, so I ended up bringing down the Maine ghost hunters, which came down and were great. They spoke to the class, showed them all the tools they use, all the equipment. I had one student who did her final project on dowsing because she got really interested in that because of the Maine ghost hunters. I also had one student who he got really into the tech side of stuff and all the equipment. So he ended up doing his final project on that, and it ended up being one of the best pieces of work I've ever seen out of this kid. And this is a kid who doesn't really get into school. He has a hard time showing up. He's not really interested, but yet for some reason he got really interested in this class, which was great. Through this class, he was able to learn some basic sciences. Through the technology, he learned how they work through circuit boards and capacitors and transistors. Like, he learned all of that stuff. He also ended up learning some simple biology. And from my perspective, I have a degree in philosophy, but I kind of also look at the paranormal and supernatural as almost a sociological thing, where it's so much a part of our culture and so much of our mythology and their stories and experiences that it's almost passed down. It's almost like a residual memory or a genetic memory or something like that that's still carried on in humanity. So I kind of taught that side as well, where it's not just like personal experiences, but there's actually something bigger going on that has been going on for generations. Myself, I've been interested in the paranormal since I was a kid. I remember going to the library and always taking out the same books on Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, poltergeists, anything I could. When I was in 4th grade, I was really into and obsessed with poltergeists. It was kind of weird. I even created a little comic book character called Treegeist, and just the whole concept of poltergeists really interested me. And in 4th grade, I really had no real-world experience to understand exactly what a poltergeist was, but I was interested in what I could understand. It's carried on to that, and I've expanded. I've been interested in cryptozoology and aliens as well, the whole Fortean studies thing, which all fall under kind of the paranormal. In fact, when the MUFON guy was up, he was great, did a great presentation. He then emailed me a couple days later being like, hey, would you like to be an investigator for MUFON? At the time, it was my first year teaching, and I really had just too much on my plate, and I couldn't really deal with it at the time. So, unfortunately, I haven't actually gone through the training for MUFON, though it's something I would really like to at some point. Anyway, that's kind of where I started thinking about maybe doing an investigation in the paranormal as well. I then, and have been since, trying to organize a group called MAPPER, the Maine Association of Paranormal and Extraterrestrial Research. Basically have about 7 people who are interested. It's just a matter of getting them all organized so we can actually have a meeting and discuss what we're going to do and how it's going to work. I've written the bylaws, but again, unless I get the group together, it doesn't really work. And that's kind of where I see myself in a paranormal group, is more of the leader role. Last year I formed and funded and organized the robotics team for the high school. They never had one before. I started it up. Huge endeavor. It was the first kind of big thing I've really did. After that, I kind of moved into organizing and kind of tried to work with nonprofits and doing organization, and unfortunately couldn't get my foot in the door before this past school year started up. Anyway, I really see myself as more of the leadership type of role of taking charge. I mean, that's the teacher part of me, of being like, hey, you need to do this. But the problem with that is also being the teacher part. I have a real problem with people that don't learn at all, where it's like, I understand that people make mistakes, I understand that not everybody knows everything, but when you've been told 7 times how to do something and you still don't do it or understand it, then I'm going to get frustrated. And I've at least learned how to be diplomatic about it through teaching, which is a great thing. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, completely lost my train of thought there. I just kind of spaced out and was like, what was I doing? Okay, yeah, and that's a whole other thing. I'm kind of random and I space out and think I think it's part of the philosophy major, which of course meant I have no real job. I end up teaching because of that. So it's one of those things where I've considered, okay, do I go and get my master's in education? Do I get it in philosophy? Or do I actually follow my passion and go into parapsychology, which my parents look at me and go, okay, you got philosophy out. That means you don't have a job. You need to get a degree in where you can get a job. So I'm still kind of like, but I like teaching, but it's not my passion at the moment. But it's really important to me to actually follow my passions, even if it's not financially successful. I also own a video store, so I have that kind of role of being the boss and the man, which it's interesting, having to fire people and hire people and kind of being in that financial stress, because it's a video store and yeah, they're kind of going under, so that's not a great thing, but I'm dealing with it. And yeah, it's one of those things where I love movies, passionate about movies. I've worked on 2 independent films as makeup artists, as PA, as an assistant editor. So I kind of have that love and that background, but it hasn't been really fruitful for me, and I ended up owning a video store. And yeah, thus I'm kind of in a bunch of financial debt. Within the same time I bought 2 stores, I also bought a house and a car. Yeah, great decisions there. Anyway, because of that, I ended up teaching, which is something I do love a lot. But it's one of those things where I do have passions, and I really would rather follow passions than just do something because it's a job. And that's why I love teaching at like the new school, because I'm able to teach those passions. But I also want to get out there and do those passions, such as paranormal. It's something that's always interested me. It's one of those things where I always go back and be like, you know what, this is something I'm really interested in, I really want to do and really need to do. And I just need to get in there and actually have some real experience. I mean, I've been out there ghost hunting a couple times with friends, but, you know, you don't really get a whole lot when you go out there and see what you can find. I mean, 90% of the time you're not going to find anything. That's perfectly okay, I'm perfectly fine with that. I mean, when I was a second assistant editor on an independent film, most of my days were sitting there watching the main editor, and you know, I could sit there for 6 hours straight just watching, and that's all I had to do, because other than that it was rewind reels or find scenes, and that's not too thought-provoking. But it's that idea that it will get to somewhere else, and that's kind of what I need. Is I need that real-world experience to actually observe for myself of what it's like, in order to actually start getting out there and doing it myself. So that's a bit about me, what I've been interested in, what I've done, and yeah, that's it. I really would like to do this because I love to travel, and I'd love to study the paranormal, and what better way than to travel across the country looking for ghosts. Okay, thank you very much.